the technological advances of the microscope have allowed us to learn and know about cells. Okay. Now, one of the most important foundational theories in biology is called the cell theory, and it has three parts. So, the first part says all living things are composed of one or more cells. We've talked about that already this year because remember, we said that's why viruses, one of the strongest pieces of evidence that prevent scientists from considering viruses to be alive. Viruses are smaller than cells, they are not cells. So, because of that, they are technically not considered to be alive. Now, one cell is alive. So, the barrier between living and non living, at least for right now, is the cell. Okay. Step two, or sorry, part two of the theory. Cells are organisms' basic unit of structure and function. So that sounds very similar to number one, but it's different. Structure means how something is built. So the materials used, the parts, okay? Function is what it does. What does this thing do? In biology, structure matches function. So those biological molecules that we talked about, carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, nucleic acids, living things use those molecules to build themselves. And because of the different properties of those molecules, different structures in living things have different functions, and they usually match. So for example, our cell membranes that surround our cells are made of lipids. And that was on the test Friday. Lipids do not bond or are not attracted to water. That allows our cell membranes to stay separate from the watery environment that surrounds them. Okay? So the properties of that lipid allow it to function. Does that make sense? And then last, all cells come from existing cells. So living things don't just appear out of nothing, out of nowhere. Anything that is alive today came from something else that was also alive. Okay? So if a bacteria is on this desk, it came from another bacteria. That tree in the courtyard, the trees in the courtyard, developed out of a seed. The seed is just an embryo of a plant, which is a cell, okay, surrounded by a food source. All of you in this room started as a single egg cell fertilized by a sperm cell. One cell. Then that one cell divided and divided and divided and divided and divided and divided. And now you're made of 75 to 100 trillion cells, not including all of the bacterial cells that are in your digestive system, in your mouth, okay? Your small intestine, okay? And these three theories, or three parts to this theory, that's what you're going to be learning about today in your assignment. There is actual scientific background and experiments that were done to prove these three theories. So we actually have scientific evidence that living things don't just pop out of nowhere, okay? Okay, and that's what you're going to be doing at the end after I talk about a couple more slides, okay? Oh, I'm going to have to move this. Now, this applies to bacteria, plants, really any multicellular organ. Oh my gosh. Sorry, guys, this is not working. Any multicellular organisms. Now, structures of living things are in levels, okay, from smallest to largest. So the smallest things we talk about are atoms. Atoms are individual units of an element. So for example, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, sulfur, those are atoms, okay? When hydrogen and oxygen, when two hydrogens and one oxygen bond together, they have now become a molecule we call water, okay? all of the biological molecules we talked about the last 2 weeks, so proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, nucleic acids, those are all molecules. So we're at this level now. Okay, molecules. Molecules are not alive. They have properties, okay, different properties depending on what they're made of, which elements they're made of, but they're not alive. Okay? Now, once you have biological molecules, you can put those together like little Lego blocks to make what we call organelles. Organelles are tiny parts of cells that have different jobs. We'll learn about those later this week. Okay? Now, again, those organelles are not alive. Okay? But when you put those organelles together, they can build a cell. And a cell is alive. And the reason that cell is yellow on this slide is because this is the first level that is considered to be actually alive. If you go below this level smaller, so organelle, molecule, atoms, none of those are living. If you go up from here, tissues, organs, organ systems, organisms, those things are alive or made of living cells. Okay? And these build on each other. So atoms make molecules, molecules make organelles, organelles make up cells, cells make up tissues, tissues make up organs, organs make up organ systems, and organ systems make up complex organisms. Okay? Now, not every living thing has all of these levels. So like a bacterium on the desk, right? A single cell bacterium on the desk does not have organs or tissues. It stops at this level. But is it still alive? Yes, because it's at least at this level. Viruses, which we still debate about, are at this level. They are compounds, molecules, bonded together. Okay? They're made of protein and nucleic acids. Okay? Any questions on this? Okay. So a cell is the basic unit of all organisms. Okay? Now, sometimes cells do live together, like maybe you've heard of bacterial colonies. Sometimes they may live close to each other, but they're still independent. They're not one organism made of many cells. They are individual cells living together. Does that make sense? Now, they may or may not exchange information, but they're still technically separate living things. Okay? Now, the example I'm going to give you today is of your stomach. So once you get above the cellular level and you get to tissues, everybody take your left hand and ball it into a fist. Okay? Most people, this is about the size of your stomach. So maybe you can see the video here. What I want you to do, put your left hand right at the point right here where your rib cage ends. So like right here. That's about where your stomach is. Okay? So does everyone see that? It's about where your stomach is. Okay? Give or take. Now, your stomach, so whenever people are like, oh, I have a stomach ache, those are your intestines that you're pointing to. Your stomach's right here. Now, your stomach, we would all agree is an organ, probably. And you've heard that before, I'm sure. But your organs are made of different types of tissue. Tissues are groups of cells that work together. So, for example, your stomach, because it's an organ, is made of many types of tissue. So, for example, one type of tissue found in your stomach is smooth muscle. Smooth muscle is muscles that you don't have to think about, and they contract on their own. Okay, so after you just ate lunch, you don't have to sit here and think like, okay, stomach digest. Like it does it on its own. Okay, the smooth muscle that surrounds your stomach is constantly doing little contractions, little muscular contractions called peristalsis, that is mixing the food in your stomach and breaking it into smaller pieces. Okay, but that's not the only type of tissue in your stomach. Your stomach also has epithelial tissue that is making digestive enzymes, right? Your muscles don't make digestive enzymes. Their focus is on movement, peristalsis, right? So that one organ has multiple types of tissue in it, okay? And now your stomach doesn't work alone. Your stomach works with other organs like your small intestine, your large intestine, your esophagus. And all of those organs together create your digestive system. Now, if you only had a digestive system, you could not survive because your stomach and your digestive system relies on oxygen, which your respiratory system supplies. Okay? So then, after the organ system level, at the organism level, all of your organ systems work together to keep you healthy and alive. Does that make sense? Any questions on this? None. Okay, so there's a trade-off to having this complexity. So this is the last slide we're going to talk about today, and then you're going to do a little bit of background information work on this, okay? So if I say that something is unicellular, I always think of unibrow. So if I don't like clean this up right here, I'll end up with one eyebrow that goes across, right? Unibrow, that's one cell. So a bacterium, a single-celled bacterium, is alive, but it's made of only one cell. If that bacteria dies, that's it, okay? It's not going to reproduce anymore. There's not going to be a bacteria there anymore, right? If I say multicellular organism, I'm talking about anything made of more than one cell. Two or more is multicellular, okay? Now, because multicellular organisms are made of more than one cell, that means that their cells can become specialized. So you have, sorry everybody, I was just closing the door because lunch transition is happening. So you have thousands of different types of cells that make up your body, okay? And each of those cells has a different job. They're specialized, okay? And that's great because that means because of all of these different things that cells can do, that or living things can be very complex, like ourselves. But there's a caveat to that, or a small trade-off. And the trade-off is your stomach is really good at doing one thing, which is digesting food, but it's dependent on all of the other systems in your body working. So your stomach can't function alone. Your stomach needs your respiratory system to deliver oxygen and get rid of waste. Your digestive system needs your circulatory system to transport nutrients around the body. So the digestive system is really good at breaking stuff down, but your digestive system doesn't transport things. So I've got cells that make up the skin in my hand, right? Now, these cells are using the proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids that come from my food to function. But my digestive system didn't bring them to my hand. My circulatory system did. Does that make sense? So what that means is if there's a problem with one of these systems, it will likely impact all of the other systems in a living thing. Okay? So if you're having trouble breathing, all of your other systems are going to be affected because they will lack oxygen. Okay? If you're not digesting your food properly, you're having a problem with digestion, the other parts of your body are not going to work properly because they won't have the raw materials they need. Does this make sense? Kind of? Okay, so now tomorrow we're going to talk about different types of cells, from very simple cells to very complex cells, okay? What you're going to work on today, I'm going to give you the last 15, 16 minutes of class to work on the assignment that says Introduction to Cell Theory. Introduction to Cell Theory. Now, it's a Google Doc, so what you're going to be doing is watching a small video on the background of the scientific, the cell theory, okay? And then after that, okay, there are some questions to answer about the video. Are there any questions about what you're doing today? Okay, the video is very good. I usually like watching it together, but I think it's more effective that everybody gets to watch their own. Okay, it's gives you some great background information on the scientists that developed the cell theory. Okay,
Are we
now
only doing?
once you watch the video, then you need to go back and answer the questions in the assignment. Okay. All right, so somebody had a question. Who was that?
It was me, Brian. Are we? Is the video part the only part we're doing?
No, you're doing the whole thing. So you're watching the video and then completing the assignment based on the video. So you're doing all three parts.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right, great. You can get started now. Now the Zoom is going to stay open, which means I'm not going to be disconnected, but I will mute myself so you don't hear me in the background. Okay. And then if you have any questions, I can still hear you. So just unmute yourself and I will come back to my computer and answer your question, okay? All right. Okay, so everyone can get started and I will be here if you need me.
All right. Can I? All right. The only reason I'm late usually is because when
Hang on,
I'm in
Ray.
the rec center.
I'm gonna
Huh?
send you a breakout room. Hang on. Hang on. Ooh, hang on.
Wait, can I tell you something?
Yeah, I'm gonna talk to you alone in 1 second. I just wanna set this up right so I can. Okay, so Ray, you should have a thing now.
I haven't got anything yet.
It should be an invitation to a breakout room. Oh, hang on 1 second. That's not gonna work. Okay.